I work in INTACH and we got this Dutch Delftware tiles in Velankani, Our Lady of Good Health Church. So actually they found it as an ceramic of Chinese or Portuguese, even they had a doubt. So then they called us and they thought it has an historical value, and they asked us to come and document and conserve it. So it's on the process. So starting from what is tiles, it is in baked clay, a thin slab of baked clay, and it's basically it can be for used as utility and for the decoration also. So on the ceiling, roof, wall, floor, and furnitures also it can be used. And these are the three tiles. Like there are many actually found in the Velankani church. So starting from how that started doing these earthen ways was from potters were basically from Spain and Amsterdam, because when these potters were doing this tiles called Mezzolica tiles in Italy. In Italy, so when the Spain started acquiring the Antwerp part during the 80 years war, so during that time the potters left the Antwerp and came to Dutch. So that's how, and during that time, during 1585, this was started. So, and why the reason why they started was that they found that in the Delft that there was a huge market for the Chinese porcelain, that too mainly blue and white porcelain, and they started imitating those porcelains, but they say that it is a porcelain, and the material how they make it or produce it, it's not a porcelain. But because they started imitating and they want to compete with China, they themselves said it as a porcelain, and and they also used red clay which was locally available, and it was glazed. And these tiles were actually Delftware, they have the pots, vessels, all these things, but I'm focusing on the tiles over here. And these Delftware tiles are first in this initial stage they were polychrome, so they were the Mezzolicas, how they because the potters basically were from Italy, so and that area, so they were like doing the same little copying from of those things and all, taking from the Mezzolicas. But later slowly they started again adopting these Chinese color scheme also in that mainly blue and white of Ming dynasty. And also these the themes, most of the themes they used in the tiles were contemporary also. And for an example how it was contemporary, because during that time most of the Dutch people were sailing around for the trade purpose everywhere. So at that time it's in a book also they have written like they used to get haunted or kind of things, like scary things continuously because of continuously sailing in the ocean and all. So they used to get scary dreams and all. So they used to express those things even on the tiles also. And also they took the masterpieces works of contemporary artists also, they copied that also. And motifs in the tiles also tells the historical evolution of the tiles. So in each period when they manufactured the tiles, the motifs were different, and even the main theme what they took was different, and step by step. Example, even when the Turk introduced the tulip flower to Dutch also, so at that time a huge market was there in the Dutch, so even it was called as tulip mania. So at that time most of the tiles were designed in different varieties using tulip flower. So this is how, and this reached India through Dutch East India Company, VOC. This Dutch East India Company was started in 1602. So, however, it came to India it's only after 1602. So, and my one more thing is like it's not about the conservation. It's research is going to tell like what's the reason why we need to conserve it. So, what's the value the styles has? So, these are the Delftware tiles. So, first the polychrome tiles. It actually is a 4 tile. It's a combination of 4. So before it was like they didn't do a single pattern in each tile, but it contained a one part of the whole pattern. So it is arranged of 4 tiles, and the next is a single tile. It's during the tulip mania, so it's a tulip flower, and then slowly, even at that time, they started adopting even the Chinese that Ming blue and white combination. And even later, this blue and white, because of these Delftwares also, it was very famous as Delft blue also. And one more thing is like these Delftwares, initially it was produced only in the Delft part of the state, and later all around the Dutch was, these tiles were produced. But the name was given it as a Delft only, it was not in a different thing. So it became as the whole product itself became a name as a Delftware, other than which are created, like manufactured in Delft. And like source of imitation, first like the color combination, and also the reason why they wanted to produce tiles was that to compete with China, and also like they saw the market that they have. And also these Chinese porcelain and the vessels which they were importing to the Dutch had a very huge amount, like it was too expensive. So if some people couldn't afford, so these Delftware tiles were mainly for the middle class people. So it was meant for them. So that how it is an imitation, like it's a source for the imitation. And the Mesolika tiles, these are the Mesolika. You can see the designs of, like over here, the first one, polychrome tile, which I told. It is similar to these Mesolika tiles. Even over here in Mesolika tiles, they used to, one single tile used to contain a half, like part of a pattern. So it's not it won't carry the whole image in one single tile. Sorry, and the Portuguese azulejos. And in this Portuguese, they used to make it's a hue, even it's the same actually. Like they used to adopt the paintings, like start taking the famous artist paintings and started doing on this. And each tile carried a part of a painting rather than the whole in one single tile. So the methodology of my research. So in this research, I'll be doing these things, like first thing, what are Delftwares, and what are the history, what's the history of Delftware, and how it is manufactured, and the market that it had, and even as a work of art. Look, so what is that art it's carry, like it has its own importance rather than as not only as an object but also as an art. So the image created on it or the designs. And then next, chapter 2 is Dutch and India trade link. So because that's how it came to India. So what's the trade? So it came through VOC. So the relationship between India and Dutch. And also I'll be focusing on the Dutch ports and its region in India, so that we can see where all these styles could be seen other than Velankani Church. And then chapter 3, Delftware tiles within the Dutch colonies in India. So that's where Velankani Church comes. And also Delftware tiles, next chapter, Delftware tiles present apart from Dutch colonies in India. So recently I came to know that it is in Junagadh Fort of Rajasthan. So just still I need to research on it, so that was there any Dutch relationship in that. So they have in the window panel. And then next will be the comparison and the criticism. So why it is so important, why the tile is so important. So that's the reason I'm adding this one, comparison and criticism. Chinese porcelain and Dutch Delftwares, Chinese perfection in execution of themes and Dutch stylization, and Dutch mainstream art and Dutch Delftware art. And it's also very important because Dutch mainstream art was so peak. It was in its peak. That's the time when the Rembrandt and Vermeer came. So at that time, how the Delftware was, what was the development, what was the problems it was facing. So critically analyzing and comparison will be there, and then the conclusion. So sources of my research will be literature and visiting the sites, and then also trying to visit the ports or collect the information, so where we have other than these two sites, and also in the museums and meeting concerned scholars. So, and why this is important, and the conclusion, like why we need to, this study is important, is so that one thing is clear, that they boldly did that. It's an imitation, but it's not like a reproduction or the forgery of a Chinese porcelain. So it's something different. They did boldly. So it has its own value, but it's just an imitation. So what's that value it contains? And then, so the presence of these Dutch Delftware tiles in India indicates the relationship and trade between India and Dutch, and the composition and manufacturing process of this Dutch Delftware tiles helps in chemical analysis to formulate the further conservation procedures. And history and the manufacturing procedures of Delftware tiles will add value for the reason of conservation. So, thank you.